We're going to start. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على خاتم الأنبياء وسيد المرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. حلقة اليوم إن شاء الله جزء من مسلسلة علوم القرآن، وتحديدا في الموضوع الرابع: كيف نفهم آيات القرآن وما هي المخاطر التي تترتب على عدم الفهم الصحيح لكتاب الله تعالى. في الحلقة الماضية تحدثنا عن ما يسمى بآية السيف، ويعني كانت الحلقة بالكامل عن هذه الآية التي يدعي البعض أنها نسخت كل ما في القرآن من آيات تتعلق بالتعايش السلمي مع غير المحاربين. اليوم إن شاء الله نتكلم باختصار عن موضوع آخر، ونفس الأخطاء تقريبا التي وجدناها في ما يسمى بآية السيف توجد في هذا الأمر أيضا. هو سؤال شائع: هل حقا أن القرآن يمنع أن يصادق المسلم غير المسلم؟ نبدأ بعون الله. أول حاجة، البعض يشير إلى بعض آيات من القرآن دون أن تربط ببعضها البعض على قاعدة أن القرآن يفسر بعضه بعضا. So we'll begin first with the argument that some people make that the Quran prohibits good relationship with people who are not Muslim. I first refer to what they say without criticizing or commenting. في وصف المنافقين, when the Quran speaks about the hypocrites, the Quran says الذين يتخذون الكافرين أولياء, and some actually stop at this point because that makes their argument anyway. In the translation of meaning for that part that's frequently quoted, hypocrites are, that based on the ayah before that immediately, but the ayah begins الذين, those who take the deniers of truth, or الكافرين أولياء. This is a better translation. Allies, many translate it as friends. That is about kafirin, and as we indicated in the previous session, the word kafirin is a broader term which includes people of the book as well as idolatrous people and many others, those who do not accept Islam or reject the message of Islam. But even beyond that general term, al-kafirin, some ayat refer specifically to Jews and Christians, or what we call people of the book. In Surah Al-Ma'idah, the 5th surah in the Quran, ayah 51, يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا تتخذوا اليهود والنصارى أولياء بعضهم أولياء بعض ومن يتولهم منكم فإنه منهم إن الله لا يهدي القوم الظالمين. Rough translation: O believers, do not take Jews and Christians for your allies. Some even say friends, or translate friends. They are but allies of one another, and whoever of you allies himself with them becomes indeed one of them. Behold, Allah does not guide such evil doers. Those who look at this, it talk about generally every non-Muslim, kafirin. We talked about the meaning of kufr, but we'll come to that maybe later, inshallah, not today. Kafirin, those who reject or do not accept the message of Islam, which is a free choice, by the way. Allah gave that people the choice. من شاء فليؤمن ومن شاء فليكفر. The Quran is quite clear on that. And they say, look, here, don't take friends, as they translate it normally or understand it, of kafirin. Even when Muslims argue that there is a special relationship between Muslims and people of the book, Jews and Christians, because of a variety of reasons, Even here they say, don't take them for friends. They say, argument is made. How could you go around that? No, we don't go around. But we ask ourselves first, that the term oftentimes, like I say, used to translate it into friendship is inadequate. Since I got the translation from Muhammad Asad, he was correct in avoiding some Orientalists or others who refer to it as friendship. Al-wilaya is not the same thing. Wilaya is more than just friendship. I should say not just friendship, because it includes an element of friendship, but it means seeking protection and alliance with those who are not Muslims. So that's the term awliya in the Quran. It didn't say asdaqa, which means friends. But we have also to examine or ask ourselves whether there are other ayat in the Quran in the same topic, which is the proper methodology in interpreting the Quran, other ayat that explain why, or is it just a blank prohibition? Don't make friends for anyone who's not a Muslim. طيب, let us look at some reasons, right from the Quran itself, why they are criticized. One, الذين يتخذون الكافرين أولياء من دون المؤمنين أيبتغون عندهم العزة فإن العزة لله جميعا. ليه? There's a good reason given here. As for those who take the deniers of truth, or al-kafirin, for their allies in preference to the believers, and they hope to be honored by them when, behold, all honor belongs to Allah. This is like the case where one country is threatened, Muslim country, and instead of allying itself with fellow Muslims, with the Ummah, to make alliance for mutual protection, not aggression. تعاونوا على البر والتقوى, righteousness. They go and align themselves with those who are non-believers. أغيثونا. It is not a matter even of seeking their help in fighting a tyrant, even if that tyrant is Muslim. There have been some ulama, actually, who said, classical scholars, that it is permissible for a Muslim to fight even with non-Muslims against someone who's more harmful and more tyrannical. So this is a special case perhaps they deal with. But the case that the classical scholars spoke about is not to invite some powerful nation militarily and give them the right to decide. They call the shots the way they want, and Muslim would be just followers. We have seen cases in recent history where even they put the Muslims in the first rows to get killed, and they fight behind them. But the deciders are not the countries that invited them. So that is different altogether, even in these exceptional cases, from depending on others for your protection and letting them decide for you. Okay, we are aware in contemporary history also, when some Muslims, misled Muslims, align themselves with enemies of Islam against their fellow Muslim brothers and sisters who are even oppressed. Some who are even promoting acceptance of the occupation of Muslim land. Why? يبتغون عندهم العزة. They think that they will be honored. They get the nice pat on the back by those who do not recognize the legitimate rights of Muslims. So that psychology of defeatism, the psychology of seeking the pleasure of other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, let alone the pleasure of those who are powerful and equally unfair and unjust in their dealing with Muslims. So now we put it in perspective. It is not a blanket sort of prohibition at all. All right. There are other reasons as well. But let me get to the next slide because that should be actually the order. What exactly, excuse me, I think I got some mix up in the, yeah, okay. Okay. Briefly speaking, there is also prohibition when the Quran condemns taking allies and defenders from among the non-believers. Is actually related to a story, and that's why one has to look into the historical aspects also in interpreting this ayat. That refers to a man, even though he was a companion of the Prophet ﷺ, by the name of Hatib ibn Abi Balta'a. He was, in a way, an honored companion of the Prophet ﷺ, and he participated in the Battle of Badr with Muslims. But then human weakness sometimes overcome even the best of people. When the Muslims were preparing to march Fath Makkah, to march towards Mecca after the betrayal of Muslims by non-Muslims, of course, especially the Qurayshite Arabs, of the Treaty of Hudaybiyah. I think we mentioned that last time briefly. It may be coming again for a reminder. So what Hatib did really, that he had some of his relatives or family stay in Mecca, where the idolatrous Meccan Arabs were in control. So he seemed to have flirted with them a little bit by providing them information about Muslim preparation in the hope of having favor with them. So if Muslims lose, at least he might say, all right, I helped you. So try to carry some favors with them. This is what in Surah Al-Ma'idah, the reference is made. ترى كثيرا منهم يسارعون فيهم يقولون نخشى أن تصيبنا دائرة. That you will find some of them, or many of them, try to hasten in giving information to the enemies at the time of war. And they say basically, it's clear, نخشى أن تصيبنا دائرة. It fits in the story, typically. That's why they say it's أسباب النزول. I'm afraid that something wrong will happen to us, i.e. to us or my family that's still there in Mecca. Now, the Quran considered that also alliance with non-Muslim, not because of their religion, but because they were at the time at war with Muslims. So for a person to do that, in a way, actually, you could say this is an act of high treason. And if the Prophet ﷺ ordered that person to be executed, I think in all armies, imagine somebody from an army. I mean, I know there have been some recent changes a little bit about stricter criteria for capital punishment. But in many Western countries, until recently, and some still even, that betrayal or giving secret information to the enemy at the time of war deserves, actually. But even if it's not it is a very, very serious issue. But you know, the kindness of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the fact that not even his teaching, but his siyasa shar'iyya, even in administrative decisions, that is left to his interpretation, he was so merciful, he was so wise to weigh the harms and benefit of taking any particular stand. We find it not only in this story, but in many others. Just to digress a little bit, to indicate this is very important insofar as people who rush into decision. The Quran says the hadith, the punishment should be this or that. First of all, when the Prophet ﷺ received the mission or commission as the Prophet of Allah, the Kaaba was not exactly built on the original foundations built by Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam. But then he tells Aisha, look at his wisdom. Well, he, even after Fath Makkah and had powers, he could, change it, re-establish it, rebuild it on the proper foundation. Can anyone say that this is wrong? It's good, restoring it, its origin. Yet, he tells Aisha radiallahu anha, Aisha, had it not been that your people are close in time, in terms of their background of Jahiliyyah, the pre-Islamic ignorance days, I would have demolished the Kaaba and rebuilt it on the foundation of Ibrahim alayhi salam. So here is something also related in usul, the Islamic legal theory. What is said called ma'alat al-af'al, which means there is something that is right, you could do, or you should do. But if you look in a given situation about the consequences of that, it could be disastrous. There would be greater harm than benefit. So he figured out these people, yes, became Muslims, but still, for decades, they respected the Kaaba in spite of their idolatry. And if he took that step prematurely, it could cause a great deal of commotion in the community. So here it's not the legalistic things and say, oh, this is better. Consideration of a given situation. Secondly, when the head of hypocrites in Medina, Abdullah ibn Abi Salul, insulted the Prophet in his absence, but then he, out of his cowardice, when the Prophet asked him, he denied. لا يخرجن الأعز منها الأذل. He said, يقولون لئن رجعنا إلى المدينة لا يخرجن الأعز منها الأذل. So الأذل here, that if we go back to Medina, after giving campaign, those who have the honor, meaning himself, will drive away those who are meeker, referring to the Prophet ﷺ and the belief. But of course, when the time of question came, he swore that he didn't say that. And the Quran refers to it. يحلفون بالله ما قالوا ولقد قالوا كلمة الكفر وكفروا بعد. The Quran refers to that as a kind of kufr, really, to say that about the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And Umar ibn al-Khattab say, دعني أضرب عنق هذا المنافق. Let me strike the neck of that hypocrite. Was Umar right in terms of the apparent offense? Probably he was. Okay? If the Prophet accepted the mashura of Umar radiallahu anh, would he be really doing something wrong? With that person was the source of fitna and commotion in Medina. You know what he says? أما معنى أخشى أن يصبح الناس فيقولون أن محمدا يقتل أصحابه. I am afraid that people would wake up next day if he kills or order the killing of that munafiq. The people will say Muhammad is killing his companions. Why? Because Ibn Salul was claiming that he's a believer and he's companion with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Look at the بعد النظر and estimate, not just go ahead and do it, go ahead. As if Islam is nothing but chopping heads and cutting hands and all of this. So there are several incidents where the Prophet ﷺ opted for this. And this was one. Did Hatib deserve to be punished? Yes. No question. Yet he said that Hatib, up to that point, was a very good Muslim, really. And like I said, he was among the people who participated in the campaign of Badr, which was a very hard test of Iman. And he said, لَعَلَّ Allah, maybe Allah looked at the people of Badr and he forgave him on account of his good record in the back. I'm sorry for that digression, but sometimes I hope it gives some notion also of why we get sometimes on the same issue scholars who take a very literal interpretation regardless, and those who, yes, literal when there is no way around it, but when there is room, they consider also some of those important factors. All right. So that's one reason. It is not a blanket. Hatib was wrong and should not have taken the non-believers awliya, defenders. But then there is another one. I remember after September 11, one very famous national rabbi appeared on the CNN and he tried to explain why these crazy Muslims did that stuff in the towers. And he said, because the Quran tells them don't take Jews and Christians. And he said, for friends. Okay. And he referred to this ayah here, the previous ayah, that's Surah Al-Ma'idah 51. Okay. That don't take Jews and Christians for friends, as it's mistranslated. Of course, there was a lady scholar, she was teaching Islamiyat, I forgot her name, actually was interviewed by CNN and tried to correct him about the mistranslation. But the issue really at hand here is not just for her to correct this, it is more than that. It is an issue that is raised over and over again in this study of the sciences of the Quran. Look at the context. Look at the ayat before and after. That very ayah 51 that he was using to show how hostile Muslims are told to be toward Jews and Christians. You read a few ayahs later, it says why. يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا تتخذوا الذين اتخذوا دينهم هزوا ولعبا من الذين أوتوا الكتاب والكفار أولياء. O believers, don't take those who took their religion among the people of the book and the kuffar. We said earlier, kuffar, other even than people of the book. It's not because of their being kitabi, Ahl al-Kitab, or not, it's material. But because of making mockery of religion. And then it goes after that to specify one aspect of mockery that should preclude them from being your supporters or defenders, at least at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, or any time that is analogous to that. Look at this ayah. وَإِذَا نَادَيْتُمْ إِلَى الصَّلَاةِ اتَّخَذُوهَا هُزُوًا وَلَعِبًا. And when you nadaytum, called for prayer, azan, they mock at you, make mockery of you. Well, the fact that they want to maintain their religion, no problem. La ikraha fi ddin. But to mock at somebody else's religion, and in the meantime say, why don't they not allow it to take us as defenders? Tell me of one sensible person that mocks at your religion and say, you got to be my close, intimate friend and ally and defender. Wake up. Now, I believe that the learned person who happened to be a rabbi, don't care if a Muslim say that, ignorantly, he would fall in the same category. And they're usually good on this learning, and they study Islam and study the Quran. Where did he get it? In his position and status, okay, he has to go to the original sources. Apparently, he went, to translation of the Quran rather than going to a scholar in Arabic to find what exactly the word, like Dr. Maurice Bouquet used to be very, very discerning about that. Okay? عليكم السلام. طيب نوطي صوتنا شوي بس عشان بيسجلوا برضه. طيب. طيب حاضر. الله يجزيكم خير. Okay? The mockery. So how I'm saying, لا عشان بس التسجيل برضه أنا أحاول أقربه لطي شوية إن شاء الله. He's learned. Even if he got it through translation, did he not look at just a few ayahs? Because it's a section that's connected. And the reason is not religion, isn't it? Mockery of people of religion. And then there is another reason to rebut the notion of categorical no relationship, no friendship. Let me ask you this, but that may be a tricky question. Normally, maybe that makes it less tricky. Normally, which relationship is more intimate, more close, and more committed? Marital relationship or just friendship? Marriage. Usually. Yes, I sometimes admit, I say sometimes, husband and wife may be at each other's throat. And he runs away from his wife to seek solace with his friend. But usually, as Brother Eric said, makes sense. Okay? It's close. ميثاقا غليظا. Not on the, at least on the normative type of level. The second question. Is a Muslim man allowed? I don't encourage it, but it's not haram. Nobody make tahrim of Allah allowed. Allah has his hikmah of that. But I don't say I don't encourage it for Muslims today in their certain situations. But anyway, is a Muslim male allowed to marry a woman, a believing woman of the people of the book, Jews or Christians? Is he or not? Okay. طيب. What are the duties from the Quran of a Muslim who's married towards his wife, even if she's not Muslimah, but people of the book, not kuffar, mushriks, or atheists? What is the duty? Surah Al-Rum, وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ أَنْ خَلَقَ لَكُم مِّنْ أَنفُسِكُمْ أَزْوَاجًا لِتَسْكُنُوا إِلَيْهَا وَجَعَلَ بَيْنَكُمْ مَوَدَّةً وَرَحْمَةً. Of the signs of Allah that He created spouses for you from your same nature or soul, okay, so that you may find tranquility in them, and He ordained between your hearts mawadda. The word mawadda is not only love, just the kind of adolescent love that is unimaginable, romantic, but once you get to the acid test of life, it fades a little bit. Mawadda is a continuity of that love, whether she's young or not, whether the beauty diminished, whether the skin became more, wrinkled, or mawadda, greater. وَجَعَلَ بَيْنَكُمْ, Allah made between your hearts mawadda, committed love, wa rahmah, mercy. Now, is the Christian or Jewish wife of a Muslim, even though the proper term is Ahlul Kitab, as we explained in detail last time, but in Surah Al-Bayyinah, she is among the broad rubric of kuffar. If indeed you're not supposed to have even friendship, let alone alliance with your own wife, then what is the problem then? Can you really say it's categorical? when the Quran commands you to be compassionate and to be loving. On the way, the question of love, some people would jump and say, but this is against wala and bara. By the way, wala and bara, it doesn't come as a sentence like that in the Quran at all. Wala is in the Quran, bara and derivatives in the Quran, but not specifically that sentence that some scholars use to repeat a lot. But in essence, wala means a Muslim should have his ultimate loyalty to Allah, the Messenger, and the believer. One ayah in the Quran combined them. إِنَّمَا وَلِيُّكُمُ اللَّهُ وَرَسُولُهُ وَالَّذِينَ آمَنُوا. The true ones that you should have your loyalty to them is Allah. And if somebody is angry of that, let him. Even some religious people who are not Muslims, they say, if a sincere Christian, if you ask him, is your devotion first to your country where you live or to your creator and the creator of your country? I think a devout Christian would say that. No problem. It's nothing to apologize for. Allah wa Rasuluh, because He's the messenger of Allah. And the believer come first. It doesn't mean exclusion of having any relationship with others, but it is a matter of priority. So you get the point. That's why I think it was Ibn al-Qayyim, but I'd like to try to trace. I heard this from a scholar, but I'd like to document it in a written form because I don't have all Ibn al-Qayyim's books. I have some. They say that love is of different types. One, if you love a person who's a non-believer because of his disbelief, so you love him because he doesn't accept Islam or doesn't believe in God, in that case, you're like him. You can't claim to be a Muslim. If you say kufr is good, kufr is cool. Okay, enjoy your coolness. But that's nothing to do with Islam. If you love a person because he commits a major sin, he's drunkard, womanizer, and all of that, you say, I love him for that. It is as if you committed that major sin yourself. How could you praise it? Even if Allah tested you and you're falling in that, istahi, you don't praise it. You say, I love him because he's that. Thirdly, if you love him because he commits saghira, minor sin, it is as if you committed a minor sin. Then he says, if you love the person because he did a favor to you, or because of their good quality, physical or otherwise. For example, you love your non-Muslim wife because of her beauty, because of her grace, as the Prophet ﷺ loved his uncle Abu Talib so dearly because he was an honorable man. He defended the Prophet ﷺ and put himself into trouble against the assault of the idolatry. He said that, no problem with it. So I hope that this might shed light on this. But I'd like to conclude with one observation. Islam is the faith of wasatiyya, just balance. So on one hand, it condemns the notion of hostility towards others who are not fighting you. يعني التفرقة بين المحارب وغير المحارب. You make a distinction between a warrior fighting against you, try to kill you, destroy you, and peaceful people who are coexisting with you. And we quoted the ayah in Surah Al-Mumtahana before more than once. There's no problem with this. Okay. So that would be an extreme and erroneous, apparently, if you look at the other ayat in the Quran and Sirah and Hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Other people go to the other extreme. To say it honestly, oh, Brother Jamal is saying it's okay to have friends with those who don't believe. So I spend 95, if not 99.9% of my time with people who don't share my faith. There is balance that we have to seek. And يعني المرء على دين خليله, as the hadith say, the person follow the religion or way of life of those who are intimate friends with him. And I don't say intimate friendship is not bad in itself, but that there is always the influence of the person. And if that person is non-believer, it's his right. Her right, we're not arguing this. But nobody can claim that he's so immune to any influence from someone that you see day in and day out. In fact, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam explained that about some groups in the past of the Israelites, Bani Israel. Of course, if same people do that, whether they Muslims, Jews, or Christian, it is just as wrong. Islam has universalistic values, not just against someone and for someone. He said that one of the problems with those people in one time, in one stage, that they did not try to ordain the good and discourage evil. So they say one of them would sit with a person, for example, who is drunkard. By the way, drunkenness is neither Jewish nor Christian. I mean, if you go back to the Hebrew scripture, it talks, in some cases, yes, about like the daughters of the prophet give him, prophet in the past, give him khamr to drink and all of this. But they say these people, some of them would do wrong. Others would not be wrongdoers. But that they still sit with them, talk with them, eat with them, even if they're not committing haram. Okay? And that is where, the Quran refers to. And by the way, don't take it as an aggressive thing, because it speaks only about wrongdoers. لعن الذين كفروا من بني إسرائيل على لسان داود وعيسى بن مريم ذلك بما عصوا وكانوا يعتدون كانوا لا يتناهون عن منكر فعلوه. That among their faults that they fell into, that they do not forbid one another or discourage one another from doing evil. So it is for that reason we say that yes, you can be open. You cannot help but having friendship with your colleagues. Alhamdulillah, throughout my career in the university, especially in my department, Allah, I shouldn't say that. I don't mean it anything, but my colleagues say that he is the peacemaker in the department, but there's some conflict or something, he comes up with some sort of compromises rather than, when academics start taking opposite views, my goodness, sparks would be flying over. So that was description, respect and love. No problem at all, I have that. So relationship at work, in relationship in study or some other, but everybody knows his balance, but I think the idea is just to avoid those extremes. So that's in essence a tiny topic, maybe a little bit shorter than last week, but I thought it's just as important, and that would give us a chance for a few minutes if there is any comment, especially that we have with us also Imam Adin, Jazawullah Khair, that we should be exchanging seats. تفضل. Exactly. Mm. No. Jazakallah khair. I made a mistake. I should have given you the mic because it's taping. So for the benefit of those who did not hear you, because of the mic, Imam Adin is referring to an incident of a man who was extra generous and honorable man by the name Adi ibn Hatim, who died even before the mission of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And after the battle of Badr, they were captives from the enemies who were fighting the Muslims. And the Prophet ﷺ, out of his mercy and recognition, even though Adi was not a Muslim, he died before even, he said that if Adi ibn Hatim was alive today and he just intercede with me, I would, for his sake, set free those prisoners of war. So the mercy and the praise and recognition. But as he said also, Imam Adin, so long as the courtesy or love of a person is not at the expense of one's faith, sawabit, things that are non-compromisable for any reason. Jazakallah khair for this well taken point. Any other question or? Jazakallah khair. For the next week, I don't know. Initially, my plan was to come on time, hopefully, even though we never begin on time, but maybe it's a little bit earlier even to make sure, and then finish about 6:45. The reason is that I have to catch a flight at 8:30 to Toronto. My wife always tells me, you keep your plans stacked as if there is nothing to keep in mind or buffer. So my plan was just to come bring my car, my bag and in the car, be all ready. I finish before Isha because if Isha Iqamah is 7, by the time I finish and leave the masjid will be 7:30, you can't make it. So I was planning to leave like 6:45, hoping that the traffic is okay, maybe reaching at most by 8, and by the time I park the car, rush to catch it. But then I was mentioning that in an email to Sister Iman, and maybe she's wiser than I am. She said, you don't have, to strain yourself like this. And of course the tension, the driving to get there, will I find the park and all of this. I said, there's no harm if you don't come for that session. The only reason, and Allah knows best, the reason even I planned it this way is to teach myself first that when you make a commitment and you're able to do it, do it. And aside from number of audience, alhamdulillah, it is being taped, and even though the last few segments are not on the page on the sciences of the Quran yet, but we can check with the Imam on this. So it's just a matter of, my wife seemed to agree with that. She said, you're pushing yourself too much. And then I remembered one thing that broke the tie because I was still wondering, what should I do? Is that next week, next Friday would be the 9th of the 8th of December. And since I haven't been teaching for some time, I forgot that this is the time where in some universities they may even begin the exams or last week of classes and finishing the defunct and delayed term papers. I think for a student community, you are a major, segment of interest in this course, whether here or viewership. It might be hard to come. I could have still come and tape it, but there is no reason to do that. So if you insist on me, I might change my mind, but I find some wiser people both females, in fact. Then maybe because females tend to be more compassionate. Yeah? Yeah. In some cases, when she said the right thing, وسطية again. Yeah. Inshallah. But again, the following week, that would be the 15th, 1/8, the 15th. Yeah. I think I may be out of town as well. The 3rd week of December, maybe this is the time when there are lots of conferences. It might be also away. So by default, then maybe we can say, see you in January, inshallah. But if there's any change in travel plan where I'm here, at least we can announce. If nobody comes, then we can just tape it, that's fine. Or if you, are you comfortable with that? جزاكم الله خيرا. بارك الله فيكم. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. And so next session, inshallah, would be sometimes in early January after registration and drop an ad and when everything is settled, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله